Welcome to The American Story. Stories about all the things that make America the country we know and love. The American Story podcast is made possible through listener donations. You can simply visit our website at theamericanstorypodcast.org and click Donate. That's theamericanstorypodcast.org. Thanks to all of you in the land of the free who have given generously so that we can produce more stories and reach more listeners. This is Chris Flannery with the Claremont Institute. I call this one, We the People. September 17th is Constitution Day in America, because on that day at the end of summer in 1787, after 4 months of deliberations, 38 of the 41 delegates present, representing 12 states at the Constitutional Convention in Independence Hall in Philadelphia, placed 39 signatures on the Constitution they had drafted, which they proposed to become the supreme law of the United States of America. This was the end of one historic deliberation, but it was the beginning of another, because as James Madison, the man who would become known as the father of the Constitution, wrote, "The Constitution would be of no more consequence than the paper on which it is written, unless it was ratified by the people of the United States." The words have become so familiar to us that we sometimes forget what an epical political fact it is that our Constitution begins with the phrase, "We the people." It was the people's representatives who wrote the Constitution, and only the vote of the people's representatives would make it the supreme law of the land. From Philadelphia, the convention secretary carried the text of the proposed Constitution to the Confederation Congress, meeting in New York, along with a letter of transmittal from George Washington as president of the convention and 2 resolutions of the convention on how to ratify and execute the Constitution. After some significant secret debate, Congress agreed to forward the Constitution to the state legislatures with Washington's letter and the convention's resolutions, but without any endorsement by Congress. The proposed method of ratification, as expressed in the convention's resolution, was that the Constitution be submitted to a convention of delegates chosen in each state by the people thereof. Then, as Article 7, the last article in the Constitution, provided, "The ratification of the conventions of 9 states shall be sufficient for the establishment of this Constitution between the states so ratifying the same." It was revolutionary to propose that to become the supreme law of the land, the Constitution would not need the approval of state legislatures, but of ratifying conventions elected specifically for the purpose of deliberating and voting on the Constitution. It was equally revolutionary to propose that the Constitution could replace the existing Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, by approval of merely 9 states, rather than by the unanimous vote of all 13. James Madison acknowledged publicly in the midst of these momentous events that the drafting and ratification of the Constitution must ultimately be justified by the right of revolution proclaimed in the Declaration of Independence. The deliberations in the Constitutional Convention had for good reasons been conducted in secret, so only now, as the Constitution was distributed to state legislatures and published in newspapers, were the American people reading for the first time the supreme law proposed to them by their delegates after 4 months of deliberations in Philadelphia. Then ensued a public deliberation unrivaled in the history of the world. For a year, throughout America, in ratifying conventions in each state and in newspapers and pamphlets, the whole people debated whether they should make the Constitution the supreme law of the land. Such an exercise of sovereign, constituent authority of the people was an astounding event in the American experiment in political freedom, and a drama worthy of Shakespeare. It was impossible to know at the outset whether the people would approve the Constitution or not, or what the consequences would be, whichever path they chose. The first state to ratify was Delaware on December 7, 1787. Delaware was followed by Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Georgia, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Maryland, and South Carolina. On June 21, 1788, 9 months after the conclusion of the Constitutional Convention, New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify, making the Constitution legally effective, according to the provision of the proposed Constitution. But without ratification by the 2 large and powerful states of New York and Virginia, it was doubtful the Constitution could succeed. Virginia ratified 4 days after New Hampshire by the narrow margin of 89 votes to 79. New York finally ratified a month later on July 26 by a vote of 30 to 27. The new government under the Constitution began on March 4, 1789, with just 11 states represented. North Carolina eventually would ratify later that year, and Rhode Island would come straggling in 1790. Reading the Constitution aloud with family and friends and thinking together about it is a good custom on Constitution Day. Great poignancy is added to this custom by recalling the American people reading it for the first time during these historic months of ratification, with the knowledge that only the assertion of their sovereign approval would make it our supreme law. Still today, and as long as America remains a self-governing country, the Constitution will only be the supreme law of the land as long as we continue to approve it. We are the foundation of all its authority. If those who govern us tend to disregard the authority of the Constitution has only one hope: that we resolutely assert our own superior sovereign authority. We, the people. Thanks for being part of the American Story. This is Chris Flannery with the Claremont Institute. I encourage you to visit our website, theamericanstorypodcast.org, to learn more about these stories and how you might support them. That's theamericanstorypodcast.org.